Alrighty. First of all, just recapping the game from Saturday, I want to give a shout out to our fans, our students, Longhorn Nation. That was a great turnout. We 2:30 kick August 31st is not easy on anybody. So from the walking Bevo Boulevard to getting in the stadium, seeing the students getting in there early, to seeing how many people stayed till the end to sing the eyes, that was really cool. And so I want to give them a shout out. I thought from a team perspective, especially having a chance to see a few of these other first games of the season for some other people. Man, I was proud of our team of just playing a clean football game. We didn't have personal foul penalties. We didn't have 12 on the field. We didn't have 10 on the field. Our guys played a clean game, and I think that's a credit to the staff. I think that's a credit to the leadership of our guys. Just some highlights coming from the game. 5 players scored their first touchdown for Texas Saturday, which was a cool thing. 8 different players ran the football for us Saturday. 28 different players had a tackle for us Saturday. 31 players played for their first game for the University of Texas Saturday. 51 players in the first half played. 77 total players played in the ball game. I think total 12 different guys caught passes, 10 in the first half. So I think it just speaks to the depth that we have on the team, and it was great that a lot of guys got to play. That was the goal going in. But as a coach, for me it was to see them play a clean game in a first game is always challenging. So that was that. Obviously moving forward to Michigan, ton of respect for this program, for this team. You don't go to 3 straight college football playoffs if you don't have a great program, and they've got a great program. Obviously, capping it off last year, being national champs. I think about some things about this team. They're 41-3 in their last 44 games. They've won 16 games in a row. They've won 23 straight home games. So these guys know how to win. You can see it in their style of play. They play with a great deal of confidence. They believe in one another. So it's a heck of a challenge for our team. But this is why you come to Texas, is to play in games like this. And to think this is the first time in the history of college football that Texas is going to play Michigan in the regular season is pretty awesome and pretty humbling to be part of that. And so we're definitely looking forward to the opportunity.
Steve, looking at Michigan's defense, can you talk about what stands out about them and if they remind you of any team you've prepared for previously?
Yeah, I think first of all, I have a great deal of respect for Wink Martindale, their defensive coordinator. He and I worked together way back in 2004 with the Oakland Raiders, and he's a great defensive mind. He's very creative. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, they just blitz and they're reckless or something. They're not. There's a method to all of the madness that they do. They're very sound from a coverage standpoint. They're really good defensive front with some elite players on the defensive front, but also some elite players in the back end too. And so when you put together scheme with great players, and then they play with a great deal of confidence because of who they've been over the years, that's the challenge, And so, you just start thinking about all the great defenses that have ever come along the way. Again, they got good schemes, they got good coaches, they got pride in that defensive style, but yet they've got some elite players. They got first-round draft picks on that defense too. So it's a heck of a challenge for us.
Are they remind you of anyone?
No, I mean they are who they are.
Who do you have being the Alex Orgy on your scout team? And then when you've got 2 quarterbacks, different styles, do you feel like you are a little bit used to it after preparing maybe for a similar situation with Alabama last year?
I think I'm going to be Alex Orgy this week. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how we prepare. Okay, so it's very similar. This guy is a problem because you have to treat him like a runner. He's got size, he's got speed. He can change the math on you quickly when you start adding into the quarterback runs. But yet the arm talent is there to where he can affect you, especially down the field. And if you remember in that game last year at Bama, Milroe made a couple big-time throws down the field to create explosive plays. And that's something in this game for us that's going to be critical. Yeah, I mean, clearly we got to do great stopping the run, and we need to be better at stopping the run than we were a week ago. but we surely don't want to do that at the expense of giving up explosive plays in the pass game. And I think that's that fine line that we have to walk going into Saturday.
Steve has just announced that Cam Williams was the co-offensive lineman in the conference. Can you comment on his development and just what you've seen from end of last season to this season?
Yeah, really proud of Cam. I've been proud of Cam about his journey, being year 3 in our program, from where he's come from as far as he completely changed his body composition, from how he was built when he got here to where he is now, the athleticism that he possesses. I think the confidence and understanding in our schemes and the way he's playing. We always do a good, bad, and ugly every Monday morning with the team, and I highlighted a couple different times of him being on the backside and getting to the second level, getting to linebackers. Even our own players were kind of like, wow. They were kind of in awe of watching a guy that big move the way that he was moving. So really proud of him. The fact that, we were returning 4 or 5 starters on the O-line, and in week 1, him being the one new starter, becoming SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, I just think speaks volumes to his development. And again, it's credit to him. It's credit to Coach Becton in the weight room. I think it's a credit to Coach Flood and just the development that he's had, not only on the field but off the field in his time here.
Coach, with so much to like from the opener, when you break down the tape, what were you kind of mentioned the run defense? What were some of the things that you need to coach up going? Yeah,
we had a few MAs in our perimeter blocking offensively. We had a couple snap infractions, which was obviously uncharacteristic. Jake Majors, a guy who's played so much, had a couple snap infractions there. We had the turnover right there at the 25-yard line, and I'd love Quinn to make, better decisions in that situation of the game, a 3rd and 13, just possessing the ball and getting 3 points out of it. It was hard sometimes to evaluate everything on special teams. They fair caught every kickoff, so trying to evaluate that. We only had 1 punt, trying to evaluate that. And then their style of their punt game, where they were rolling the ball to us, was a tough evaluation too. And so we're continuing to push those guys in practice on special teams to make sure that we're prepared, because Michigan is an excellent special teams football team, and we're going to need to play at a high level on that in that phase of it.
Hey, Coach, I know each year is a different team, but is there anything that you guys may have learned from that trip to Tuscaloosa last year that you can apply this year for another big game on the road against an elite competition?
Well, I think so. We have, I think it's 46 guys that are going to be traveling this week with us that were at Tuscaloosa a year ago. And so, we've got, that's about half the guys that'll be on the trip were in Tuscaloosa a year ago. And I think one of the keys is one, you have to have great poise and composure when you're on the road in these types of environments. This is a game of emotion. There's no question. But we need to make sure that we don't get emotional in the arena. That's the first part. 2 is playing with a real sense of confidence and belief in who we are in our style of play. We know this is a heck of a challenge. We know this will be a 4-quarter game. But stay in the course, especially when adversity strikes, because it will strike. People forget last year in the 4th quarter, we were behind in that game. And then we ended up scoring 21 points, and we ended up finishing that game on a 7-minute drive to close the game out. And so stay in the course, keeping our poise, keeping our composure, having a real sense of belief, playing as one, as a team, and pulling for one another. There's going to be over 100,000 people that want us to play bad, and there's going to be about 100 of us that want us to play good. And so we need to lean into that 100 and making sure that we're as strong as we can be.
Steve, under a 14 playoff format, the loser of this game would have very little room for error. But under a 12-team format, no matter how this game goes, both teams will exit having everything to play for still. I'm curious your thoughts just on this new format and what the rest of the season might look like beyond this.
Yeah, I again, because of the new format, I like this matchup even more. Because I think this is why you come to a Texas or you go to a Michigan, is to play in games like this. Our guys love this opportunity, and I'm sure their players do too, and I think the coaches do as well, that we get to go play in a marquee game on the road in a great environment for college football. And in a couple years, we get to do it here with them as well. And on the same token, if you win this game, it's great. If you don't, it isn't going to kill you. And, one thing I touched on to reference the game against Alabama a year ago, that this game isn't going to define our season, because if we win the game, that doesn't, automatically, declare us that we're going to be this great team. And if we don't win the game, that doesn't mean that, the season was a failure. There's a lot of football left to be played. But what I think Saturday will do for us is serve as a bit of a barometer of kind of where we're at as a football team this fall. We're going to get challenged in all three phases. And then, okay, what do we need to work on and where do we need to keep growing and getting ourselves prepared for the Southeastern Conference? And so, ideally it can serve as a springboard for the rest of the season. But we'll find out, Saturday, I guess around 3:30 o'clock or 4 o'clock or so.
Coach, you had a lot of bodies rotate in at defensive tackle. Who stood out on film after y'all watched film? And when you're playing a power running game like Michigan, how does that impact your rotation at defensive tackle?
Well, I think a couple of guys that stood out for me. I think Alfred and Vernon played well, like they do. And that was a good sign. I think Jermaine Lele was a guy that definitely showed us some things, and a young guy that kind of was a pleasant surprise was Alex January. Did some things for us in there as well. So, but we're going to need all these guys in this type of a game. I don't know how many snaps this game will be. Generally, a Michigan team in game averages right around 60 or so snaps. And so it's got a little bit more of an NFL feel. And so it's maximizing those snaps when those guys are on the field as much as it is rotating just for depth purposes. When you're playing a team that you think might go 85, 90 snaps, you need that rotation just to stay in shape. In this instance, it's when you're on that field, you got to maximize that rep. And if you get 8 reps in the game, you got to make those 8 count in whatever that looks like. And so that part's probably more important to us than anything, is just making sure that, man, we exhaust all that we have for that one play, knowing that we have the rotation we have.
Sark Quinn talked about coming back and everything kind of slowing down. What are the subtle things that you've seen from Quinn that maybe bears that out? He certainly sounded very confident and very comfortable after the game.
Yeah, no, I thought he played that way Saturday. I can remember a couple years ago, and I think it was his first career pass that gets intercepted here in DKR, and you could almost see he was a little shook, and of course he would be. Saturday, the ball gets tipped and he throws an interception. It was just so calm. He goes, I was trying to throw it away. Like he didn't feel rattled, like what might happen next? Like, are they going to change me or something? It was more about, this is what I was doing. And it was like water off his back, and it was on to the next. And he played a really good football game Saturday. I thought he threw the ball to the right people on time. We dropped a couple balls. We had a tough catch by Isaiah. I mean, I think he could have clearly only had a couple incompletions. And so I just thought the command was there, the timing of the throws, the accuracy of the throws, the RPO game, the drop back game. So again, the efficiency in the red area showed up, and I think that's all a byproduct of his comfort level. Because when he's calm and comfortable but playing with confidence, I think the other guys feel it.
Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you know Coach Moore from Michigan, but I was curious what the learning curve is like to be a head coach in his first full season. I don't know if you could go back to your first year or so.
Yeah, I would say man, he got great experience a year ago, with the situation that they were in. And to think as that season was going on at the tail end of that season, every game he was coaching in mattered. And there were some big games, It wasn't like he was just, they weren't, cupcake games. He had to go into Penn State and win that game. He had to coach against Ohio State in that game. And so he's got great exposure. And he worked for a really good coach in Coach Harbaugh. And so, I don't think probably for him that it feels new to him just because of the experience that he got a year ago. Well, I felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose at that time. We were trying to build a program that was 0-12 the year before. We were just trying to find a way to get another first down at that point. So probably a little different format than, when you take over for a team that they've got such experience. They've got, a really good developmental program that they have, and they're not really having to change schemes and coaches. That probably a different transition for him than it was for me when I went to Washington, and it was a brand new staff, and we were really trying to change a culture at that time.
Coach, last week you talked about in your preparation for Colorado State that you were thinking through all the scenarios that they could throw at you that you didn't see on film. Do you ever use AI for any of that? Do you ever get a chance to ask AI those kind of questions?
I don't want to get turned in for plagiarism. That's what I tell our that's what I tell our players as it pertains to school now. But we've got a lot of analytics that we dive into, and sometimes as a coach, the analytics are great and computers are great and AI is great because they can spit out information to you. Sometimes as a coach, I like to go with my gut too, because I think I see some things and feel some things a little bit different than a computer. I do have a heartbeat. I know sometimes y'all might not think so, but and so that feel is important too. So I think there's a balancing act that has to come out of it. But yes, we do use analytics to help us with some of that stuff.
Coach, over here. I'm wondering, is this game plan that we'll see this week one that's been in place for months? And if so, what advantage does that early preparation provide?
Well, I think, our players didn't know it probably until today, but we were practicing a lot of these plays for this game in training camp, and so they didn't know it as much, but now they know it that we've started the preparation for it today. So I don't necessarily want to say it's been in place for months, but we had a pretty good idea of the style in which we wanted to play this game. We've practiced a lot of these plays in training camp, and now we kind of get to dust them off this week and use them in the ball game.
Back by the cameras, Bob? I can't remember if we've touched on this, but have you played or coached at Michigan?
I have not.
I know you love this and the opportunity to go to a place like this, but what do you think it'll mean to you and just to this team to get to play in a game like this?
Yeah, I'm super pumped. Like you guys, again, I say this maybe for reporters or people watching that don't know me. I love college football. And even as a kid or watching Michigan play, them taking the field and all jumping up and hitting the Go Blue sign, like I love that. Like there's all these little things along college football at different teams, different stadiums that are the pageantry of the game. And so the Big House is one of those things. The Michigan helmets, them taking the field is one of those things. And to think like these two iconic programs with those iconic uniforms and those iconic helmets meeting for the first time in the Big House, man, it's awesome. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now, and we got 5 days to go. So it's pretty special, definitely.
So the odds makers opened you up as a 3.5-point favorite, and they ballooned up to 6.5. I don't know if a defending national champion's ever been a 6.5-point dog at the house, given their recent history there. What do you guys do to drown out that outside noise? Because everybody's talking like it's a done deal. Texas is going to win.
Yeah, 3 straight college football playoffs, national champs, 41-3 in their last 44 games. They've won 16 games in a row. They've won 23 straight at home. So we're going to be in for a dogfight.
Steve, going back to scheduling for a second, whether or not the SEC goes to a 9-game schedule, does that change your calculus on playing these types of matches no matter what? And then secondly, has Texas been approached about playing these non-conference neutral site games like in Atlanta or wherever, or are you open to that?
Who are those 9 teams? That'll depend on if I want to play one of these other games again. That's always the balancing act. That's always the challenge. Again, you want to challenge your team. You want to put your team in position to prepare for the long haul. You want to expose them to see who can respond to some of these environments that you have to go into. I think one of the challenges of these neutral site games to start the year is what does the rest of your schedule look like? And ours is unique in that, hey, we played Alabama the last 2 years. We play Michigan this year. We're going to Ohio State next year. Ohio State comes here the year after that. Michigan comes here the year after that. So you're looking out years down the road now all of a sudden if you want to play one of those neutral site games. Because I don't want to go to Columbus next year, go to Georgia next year, and then go play somebody in Vegas too. I mean, at that point, it's we're getting a little out of hand.
Coach, is it a advantage for your team to have an 11 o'clock kickoff where you can get up early, go play the game rather than sitting around a hotel and watching other games and seeing a bunch of drunk Michigan fans, that sort of thing?
And how would you know that? I would just say for us, hey, we love 11 a.m. kicks our time, because, we're a morning operation. We get up every day. We're 7:15 special teams meeting. We're on the grass by 8:55 every day, and we're off the field every day by 11 a.m. And so any chance for our players to get up and get dressed and go to the stadium and kick the ball off, they love it, especially on the road. And so we do welcome that. Again, is it an advantage? I don't know, but I know that it's helpful for us.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned how you saw numerous games over the weekend, big-time matchups, including the one down the street in maroon and white, how they had a primetime matchup in week 1. What do you like about your formula, though, for the past 3 years, having a big-time matchup in week 2 and a smaller opponent, quote-unquote, in week 1 to kind of get yourself prepared for that big test in week 2?
I just think you play the hand you're dealt. And that just happened to fall the way that it fell for us. I didn't really have much to do with it. It's just kind of, it was what it was. Really, this year's game was supposed to be here. I don't know if y'all recall that. And part of the transition to the SEC and with Fox and whatnot, the game got moved to Ann Arbor. So the schedule's the schedule, and then you try to prepare your team to go play it. It's fine that we had last week's game to get ready for this week's game. If this week's game was a week ago, we would have maybe prepared a little bit differently for the ball game. So here's what the schedule looks like. Here's how we're going to prepare the team to get them ready to play.
You told us on Saturday that you don't want your quarterbacks playing like robots. Was there a moment where you really learned that lesson as a player and then maybe again as a coach?
I don't know if there's one just in particular moment. And that's always a fine line because we are definitely a rule-based, kind of quarterback room, the way that we like to play. And but I also think it is important to sometimes you just have to play. And you have to make some throws and some reads and tuck it and run that aren't in the playbook that way. Right? Sometimes things come off a little bit differently. The coverage is different, whatever it is. And so I don't know, like I said, if there's just one particular moment for me or for another quarterback. I just know that that's what we've grown into, and that we do value the football IQ and playmaking ability that a quarterback can present, that sometimes can make up for poor coaching on my part. So they bail me out sometimes.
Yeah, Coach, we saw some new personnel packages, formations defensively, 6 DBs, 3 defensive linemen at times. Could you talk about the collaboration between Coach Nansen and Coach PK, and also how involved are you on a week-to-week defensive game plan approach as well?
Yeah, I think it's been a great collaboration. Like I said, I thought Coach Nansen was going to be a great addition for us. I think that has been really helpful. I think now more than ever, because of the depth we have at varying positions, that we're able to do some of that. We've got some really versatile DBs. I've talked about Jade at length, Jalen Gilbo that way. I think, like I said, the versatility of a Derek Williams, a Jelani McDonald, the things that they can do has allowed us to do more of those things. And then depth across the board, because from week to week, what we were getting ready to play last week in an air raid offense is different than what we're getting ready to play this week in a Michigan-style offense. And so having that depth, having that versatility is big. I try to dive in with those guys enough to say, hey, here's who I think they are. If I was them, this is how I would try to attack, and maybe this is what I would try to do. And then I let them go do their thing, and then I try to evaluate later in the week as we go to say, hey, this is what I would really start to expect now that I've had a little bit more time. And here's where I think as the week's gone on, maybe we're vulnerable, and this is what I would be ready for them to try to attack once they see what our plan looks like.
Thank you. Coach, you have had in your life as a player and as a coach big seasons. My question is, how do you personally rate this level of excitement of this season compared to other milestones you have had before?
Yeah, no, I like the team. I like our team, and I like the fact that, hey, we're in year 4, and we generated, I think, a really good buzz around Longhorn football. Not that there wasn't one before when we first got here, but I think because of the way we've continued to grow as a program, because of the success we had last season on the field, because of the success of our players going into the NFL draft, I think there's genuine excitement. And again, I credit our administration too of promoting this team and creating the environment in DKR. There's without question the environment in DKR is better today than it was in year one when I arrived. Now the product on the field is better too. We're a better team, but yet, man, what energy and what excitement there is around our team from our fans. And so as a coach, like, yeah, you like that kind of stuff because, in its own way, that serves as good motivation for your team as well.
Sark, I know you were working, but did you sneak a peek at the 04-05 Rose Bowl and kind of, now that you're here at Texas, appreciate what that moment maybe did to launch that 05 season?
I don't know if I watched the game live, but I've definitely seen the highlights of it. Was 20 years ago, Roger. So I was like, I had to wrap my brain around it. But I do know, I remember that the impact of that, because that kind of was the springboard into the next season that ultimately then I was back at USC. You got to remember, I was at the Oakland Raiders the year before. So I do remember that, especially in the next season, looking back at that game from a perspective of that was kind of the springboard into that next national championship year, and Vince and that whole crew. And they had an amazing football team, obviously. Iconic game, though. Like, every time I see these two uniforms on the field together, it just looks right. Like Texas and Michigan on the field, the helmets, the whole thing looks like college football to me. Thanks, Coach. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you.